Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
So as I was saying, I went to ChatGPT and asked ChatGPT what the Bhagavad, to see if it knew anything about Bhagavad Gita. So I just went to ChatGPT. I was just showing this. You go to ChatGPT and it gives you a prompt, and in that you can say, okay, tell me about Bhagavad Gita. And it came back with this kind of summary of what the Gita is. And what struck me was, I think it got the essence of the Gita right here, right? With this thing, the importance of action with detachment, meaning you don't get too involved with the fruits of the action, devotion to God. And I think that's important because I guess that depends on what your concept of God is, right? So if you think of God as a powerful force that is basically a good thing, right? Then those things that you consider very destructive or harmful to other people or everything, you probably won't take those actions, okay? And Gita also emphasized pursuit of knowledge and wisdom.
Right.
So I loved that summary. That's just within that one sentence, it captured so much. What do you think, Jiten? What do you think?
Yeah, that's very good, But you cling to the idea of God because that's almighty and all of that. So you need to cling to something.
Yes.
Okay, so because working in vacuum, people don't like that.
Yeah.
So the world has come up with this thing, and it's basically some energy which does everything right.
Well, I mean, do you think there's a concept of right and wrong in Gita?
Well, right means that whatever is required for the development of this world, the universe and all of that. So it represents universe,
I see. Okay. Let me.
All the laws are, working the right way. There is an order in the whole system,
Yeah.
and somebody is controlling that order,
Yes. Let me see what I've got here. I went through this thing and basically I asked it chapter by chapter. And
I don't know if you're meaning to show your screen, but we can't see what you're seeing.
Oh, sorry. I should say share screen or something, right?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay, share screen. Do you see this now? You guys see this? Okay. So what I was sharing earlier was this, and I'm sorry, I thought all of you were looking at it. So I highlighted that particular sentence, but we've gone over it already. And now for like I was telling you, what I did was I went chapter by chapter and say, tell me about this chapter. And so it comes back with this, and it's not, this part, it wasn't always accurate, I think, but more or less it gives you the idea. But then I went on and let me see, what was the thing that I asked first next? Okay, this thing that has bothered me about Hinduism, right? Which is this concept called moksha. And so I wanted to see what ChatGPT knows about moksha. And Jiten, you can correct me whatever you think I've got wrong, okay? But so here, when I asked ChatGPT about moksha, it came back with this part here, which is it's a concept in Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism. So it gives you the standard description, which is that the ultimate goal, spiritual goal, is for the individual soul to merge with the universal consciousness. That, I don't know, but to me, that doesn't quite make a lot of sense. What the heck does that mean, for you to merge your individual soul with consciousness? It almost seems like that you have to die, and then you become part of the universal consciousness. But I had discussed this with Shiv, and he brought up a very interesting point, which is that moksha is a liberation from the kind of typical reactions that we have, right? So the reaction to the senses, if it's too hot, we find it to be hot. If it's too cold, it's too cold, or whatever. Those kind of senses, and liberation from our own emotions, as to whether you get too depressed or you get too happy, or you are driven by something, by ego and something like that. So trying to perform whatever is your quote unquote dharma, right, without being distracted by all these normal things. So what Shiv was saying was that is moksha. It's liberation from that normal reaction to what happens in the world. What do you think, Jyoten? Does that make sense to you?
Well, the real problem is, people have desires.
Yes.
So anytime you have desires, you will try to fulfill that the material way.
Mm-hmm.
So that causes all the problems. So moksha is when you have no desire, so you can't take birth. Birth for what? There is no desire. There is no hatred, nothing,
The only problem with that, right, is it doesn't give us a way, or at least ideology that you can work with to do anything real in this world, right? If you become detached from everything and you do nothing, then you just, of course, you'll become a yogi and go and sit in the mountains or something like that. And great, but you don't achieve anything in the real world of the kinds of things that people normally aspire to, right?
अर्जुन को कहा है ना करने के लिए.
क्या चीज?
I think remember in the all along Krishna Bhagwan is saying that even if you go to the mountains, that's the 5th chapter in fact, if you go, you have to do penance. If you're real, you really want to see God, right? So you have to do penance as we are in the Grihastha ashram, all the ashrams that we are given. So he's saying that is harder because you are away from the world. But doing it within the family, within your Grihastha ashram. So he is in that ashram where he has to do his duty, right? So he's saying, surrender unto me, and whatever action you're going to do, you will not gain sin, right? So once you do not gain sin, you're doing your duty, win or lose. You don't attach yourself to those things. So whatever your actions would be, God has, Krishna says, it will fall on me and he will take care of it. So
Yeah.
That comes when you have done sadhana, right? You have surrendered, you have done sadhana a lot. Once you become siddha, you become like your confusion is gone and it's like the rays of the sun is falling on you, or you're like a lotus, right? You're like a lotus, it doesn't bother you. The dirt underneath doesn't bother you. So it's like a lotus flower.
I guess in my case, it's a little bit that I think that in Hinduism, there has to be something more that makes us interact with the real world in a very conscious and proactive way, right? This moksha, this concept of moksha, where you can fulfill your quote unquote dharma without getting getting deviated by either your own senses or by the circumstances or whatever. That, to me, that concept, that means you can pursue a particular goal, right? And not get deviated by the problems that happen when you pursue that goal. So that sort of thing, to me anyway, seems much more real, rather than this concept of becoming one with God and all that. It's very hard for me to
Well, this sort of brings us to the concept of what chapter 5 is talking about, right? Which is how you can get to the same goal, sort of. If you are talking about moksha as your goal, you can get there either through karma yoga, or you can also get there through becoming like an ascetic. Yeah,
yes.
and not acting,
that's the question,
right?
that Arjun is asking, path of renunciation, which is really moksha, going in that direction, and then working in this sansar, the work with devotion, so which one is better? So Lord Krishna states it very clearly that renunciation, moksha, a lot of these yogis, they don't desire moksha actually. They desire to continue working with the sole aim of reaching the God.
So you're saying duty, devotion, work with devotion, right?
Is superior, right?
Yeah. It's much easier than that. That's why yogis who do not get engaged in world, even though they have to have a harder time doing this practice, they will gain it, but they have to do it too. But the people who do it within the life cycle of life and death in this world, since you are in a grest ashram and you have children and this and that and all, it's easier done with sense of devotion to God.
Yes, and what I was hoping that
Yes,
you can bring.
there are a lot of examples. Kabir's case, for instance, is the same way. He always lived in the world, and he was self-realized.
Whose case is that?
Kabir.
Oh, Kabir.
Okay. And also like Janak, Raja Janak, same thing. He was a realized soul, but he lived within, he was a king. He did all the things for the benefit of the kingdom, for the good of the day. He had that devotion. So when he had achieved, he did for others, goodness for others. And that is what is important.
Let's ask other people also, we are only talking here.
Yeah, we should ask other people, yes. Anybody else have something to say about that? Let me just show one more thing that I got out of ChatGPT. And this was, actually, it goes back to a question that Vikas had asked, which was, how do I figure out what is my dharma? And so I asked ChatGPT that one too. And it said, how can I figure out what my dharma is? And because you can see that in Gita, it repeatedly tells you, pursue your dharma, don't worry about the consequences, don't get distracted by your emotions or by your feelings or your senses. Just pursue your dharma, and then the question becomes, what's my dharma? And so I asked ChatGPT this, and it came up with a very thoughtful answer, I thought. So it said, these 5 different things. So the first thing you do is you reflect on your values and beliefs. Okay. The second thing is you explore whatever your interests and passions are. Now, this becomes more clear for someone who's older, like myself, but for a young person, it may be a little bit harder. Consider your life experience, right? That part is obviously easier for an older person. Seek guidance. That's one point that I have an issue with, but anyway, practice self-awareness, and that's a little bit vague, but the seek guidance part, like I said last time, I feel I have like 1,000 gurus and they are all available on the internet, and I go and try to listen to all of them, not just any one particular guru. So I just want others' comments on this thing.
I think we could send this to Vikas.
Yeah, we could send it to Vikas for sure.
Yeah, because it was
That's
his
why
question.
I had attached these files and sent it via email, and it never got to anyone, I guess.
No, I'm sure it got, but people don't know what to read, if there's so much of stuff coming in.
Yeah, I know.
So
what do you think, Jiten?
At this time, I can't comment on this, because this is coming to materialism, and all of that. So
Yes. Yeah, there is definitely interaction with materialism in this dharma. And
where does it say that?
These are general principles, and,
well, it doesn't say materialism, but it says it's looking at your life in a more pragmatic way, right? Not with the concept of moksha, or at least this business of dying being the ultimate thing that you're seeking in life. This is your values and beliefs, interests and passions, and your life experience, very real kind of things.
And younger people, Pravin,
yeah,
they have to earn for their family. So I think it's important. You can't just leave everything and go somewhere in the mountains or wherever.
Yeah, this is much more practical, right?
It is practical for younger people.
That's why the Gita teaches you a lot of things, but me personally, I would not try for the highest things that are mentioned in the Gita. I think I'm happy if I can achieve success on a rajasic level, right? I don't need to be spiritually supreme, because that spirit that seems to be across multiple lives, present lives and future lives and past lives. It's a very complicated thing, to me anyway.
Shobha Taftani, she wants to say something.
Oh,
Shobha, go.
She's got it on
mute. Hello.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to just say about the desires and senses. Krishna talks about.
Yes.
So because I love food, so that's why I got that point.
Who doesn't love?
Because he says unless you don't try the food, you don't know the flavor. Same all the senses, right? The touching and smelling and whatever.
Yes.
We go to do that. This gives us happiness. Okay, let's go travel. Let's do this. Get the big house. So those are outside happiness. So he says, unless if you are inside, you should be happy and satisfied from inside, not just outside things to make you please yourself. So that point I liked it. So for the food was a attraction for me. Food point. Unless we didn't taste, we don't know. Suppose you start eating ice cream, you want to eat more.
Yes.
So if you don't eat, then we won't crave for that.
Yeah.
So and then this one also I like the point, this lotus thing. Because lotus is always it's dry from top, but it remains in the mud.
Yes.
So that also, that's all I want to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Shobha.
So in terms of what you were saying about death, I think maybe if you sort of broaden your definition of what death means, then you may be more open to the idea of moksha. So I think that what you're thinking of is like the death of the body specifically, or like, you know, the death of Shiv Mundkur or Pravin.Mundkur, and that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
Is that your identity dies to make space for something bigger to come in and make decisions, right?
Yeah.
And so that's really what is dying, is that little part of you that's making really stupid decisions on your behalf. Do you understand? The part of you that keeps repeating the same mistakes over and over and over and never learns, that's the part that dies.
Okay.
You understand? The part that lives, that doesn't die, is the part that knows how to learn.
Yeah, that's one way.
So if you think of it as this, then your understanding of what death is doesn't have to be so negative in its orientation. Death itself can be a positive thing. Do you understand?
Yeah. What I'm saying is that I would like it if in Hinduism we could make moksha something that makes us achieve something in real life, right?
Well, that's what I'm
in the
saying
world as it
is for example, if you're trying to accomplish, even if you're not an ascetic, right? Even if you're not living an ascetic lifestyle, and let's say you have goals for something specific that you want to accomplish in life, you still need to be able to allow for your belief systems to die and evolve. Because if you keep holding on to old beliefs that are not working, you'll keep repeating those same patterns, and you won't know how to learn from them, and you'll just keep thinking that it's supposed to work like this, even though it's not working like this. Do you understand? So many people make decisions like this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Are you following me?
Yeah. I think some of this may be answered in future chapters of the Gita,
Maybe.
you know, because I know I've read ahead a little bit to chapter 5. Of course, maybe we should dive into that. But
what I'm saying essentially is that death as an idea, as a bigger concept than just like the physical death of the body, right? Death as a concept is a necessary part of the learning process.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Losing or like making mistakes is a process that is it's necessary in order to be able to learn.
Yeah.
Really, there is no death, you know. So
exactly.
the soul is really controlling you. So it's the body based on its desire that it has taken this body to fulfill those desires, and karmas. Based on the karmas, you get the life, you know. So it's all chalked out for you. You don't have a control over that, you know. So when the body dies, you call it death, but actually it's not death. You know, the soul is still there and there are desires. So based on the desires, soul takes another body. And then the whole process goes on. So moksha, the aim in moksha is really to get rid of this birth and death and misery. There is a lot of misery associated with that. So really the aim is to get over that misery, you know, so that you don't feel it.
But Jiten, so what you're saying is the standard definition of moksha, where you look on life as full of misery and pain and all that, and you're basically trying to escape the cycle of being reincarnated, because you don't want this misery, right? And
Right.
what I'm saying is that it would be nice if moksha was a goal that makes you look on life as a positive thing, not as a big negative thing and full of pain and all that sort of stuff, but something in which you can try to achieve positive things.
Yeah, but how many people can do that? You know, when real misery comes, you know, then people just can't handle that, you know. If you can handle that, you are a saint anyway. You know?
Well, we'll come to chapter 6 eventually, but I think, that one, it spells out sort of the steps you need to follow to be a successful yogi, and various kinds of disciplines and stuff like that. And I like that. I'm not necessarily to escape the world, but I think just the discipline, yoga, exercise, meditation, those kind of things, very good things, I think.
The world is created for you, you know, to fulfill your desires. And you come here and you try to fulfill your desire with your limited knowledge. And then in the process, you incur more karmas and all of that. So that process goes on.
Yeah.
See, I think that fundamentally, a lot of what is driving the experience of suffering that is giving this whole negative connotation to moksha that you're talking about is a lack of understanding of birth and death. And so fundamentally, in order to put a positive spin on moksha, one has to actually accept the identity as that which is eternal and not that which is temporary. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's the main aim. You know, a lot of people don't understand that. They have, you know, the concept of soul as alien, you know, they only see the body. They are always in the body consciousness, you know. So that's the first step they teach you, you know, you are not this body. You are this soul, really, you are living, you never die, and you are never born. You know, your body is like changing the shirt.
Yeah. And but that process of letting go of that identification with the body is not necessarily a comfortable process, right? So because of that, there's a tendency to not want to go down this uncomfortable path of letting go of that identity and coming to terms with death.
But that's why Lord Krishna says that you have taken birth how many times, you know, millions of times, you know, you come back to the same thing. You are going on and on and on and on, you know, because all your concentration is towards the body functions. So you got to grow from there, you know, if you want to do the path of spiritualism, you know, that carries from one body to the one life to the other life to the other life. That's your growth or development, you know, towards spiritual values. So most of the Swamis, you know, what they do, you know, they don't sit idle, you know, most of them, you know, they are still in the world and they are working for the welfare of the society, you know, welfare of everybody. And they have a lot of work, you know, it's not that they are sitting alone and, you know, just meditating, you know, so they keep doing work for the welfare of people, you know, that's important.
Yes.
Mallika?
Oh, Mallika has something to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can just say something. I just listening, but I think there's definitely a value in understanding that there, you know, that the soul kind of persists following death of a single life, you know, but and that's very comforting, I think. But the other piece, I think, is, and you think about the stories in Hinduism about reincarnation of God being reincarnated in different bodies, and how in each reincarnation God is able to accomplish something in that life, you know, whether it's, you know, defeating Ravana, or, you know, some other demon. Usually there's some kind of battle to be won in each reincarnation. So I feel that even though life is temporary, the purpose of each single life, I think has, you know, there's a lot to be done in each life. So, you know, and I think identifying that purpose is what some people, you know, it's hard to know what the purpose is, or it may change over time. But I definitely feel that, you know, maybe there's with this awareness of the fact that this is sort of continuous, that your opportunity to make a difference is doesn't end with a single life. That's comforting. But I think there is an opportunity in each life to whatever, win that battle, or do something really important for humanity, you know, as in the sort of the Hindu mythology.
जितेन,
Yep.
आपने कुछ कहना है?
नहीं, मुझे नहीं कुछ कहना है. No.
Should we dig into chapter 5?
Yep.
Basically,
Jiten, did you get a chance to? Can you summarize it for us? The key things, whatever you think, or maybe
Well,
Gita.
I think it is some of the other chapters, you know, whatever Krishna taught in the other chapter is still repeating
Yes.
the same things, you know, because it's an answer to Arjun's question, you know, about renunciation versus work in devotion. So he is continue to emphasize work and devotion, you know, that's superior. You do that, don't get attached to the results, you know, and basically do your work, and similar kind of things that we have talked about before, you know.
Yeah. Somehow, one of the things I got out of the chapter was a greater awareness of the three modes of nature that we all have, right? So there's the physical, instinctive things, which we call tamasic, I guess, you know, and those things which are sense driven, right? The activities which are sense driven. And then there are the activities that are ego driven, which is the rajasic activities, where we are trying to pursue particular goals in the material world. And then there's the sattvic level. And to me, that seems like it's goals that are not for your ego, but it is generally whatever you think is good for the whole world, really.
Right.
And that's the sattvic level, you know. And I feel, me personally, I'm more kind of stuck on the rajasic level and below. You know, I think it's very hard to get to that sattvic level.
Well, you know, in a person, there is never 100% of sattvic or 100% of rajasic and tamasic. You know, there is a mixture always. Certain things they do in a sattvic way, certain other things they do in a rajasic way with a lot of passion and all of that. So it's a mixture, you know, it's a question of what dominates in you, you know, is the rajasic or the tamasic or the sattvic, you know.
Yeah.
So the division that was created by Vedas, you know, the Kshatriyas, the Brahmins, and Vaishyas, and the Shudras. So the Brahmins are supposed to have a lot of sattvic nature with them, but it doesn't mean that they don't have Rajasic, there is some work. If they have to do that, they need passion as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so they do that, but it's not that much percentage, and for Kshatriya is the Rajasic really, they have tremendous Rajasic, tendencies, but that's the right one for them, And for Tamasic, I mean, people who do the cleaning work and all of that, they eat meat, they have all kinds of those tendencies. So they have that, and the Vaishnavas, they could be anywhere in between, So that's the way the mode of nature are, and everything is what planned that way, things have changed now,
Yeah. It changed in what way?
Well, basic modes are still the same, you can still divide the same way, but Brahmins have started doing now the Kshatriya's work as well, or the cleaning work as well, so they're not confined to only sattvic activities. Same way, so there is a lot more mixture now, in people.
Yeah. Yeah, that sort of strict separation of activities is
It's
gone.
gone away now.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Also, I think there's a hint in chapter 5 of what's coming up in chapter 6, which is that you have to practice certain activities that make you spiritually stronger, I think. But the ultimate goal may be different if you are more inclined towards Rajasic things, or if you're more inclined towards Sattvic things on a personal basis, depending on your tendencies. Because, for example, for me, if I did yoga, right, or if I did exercise, or if I did studying mental activities of that sort, it would be for effectively some goal connected to the real world. I wouldn't be doing it strictly for a spiritual thing, though I completely agree that if you can do it in a way that you're not dissuaded by your senses or by success or failure, that's obviously a great thing. That's a great attitude to have, whatever you're pursuing. So even if it may be something that's could be considered just very mundane of the real world, still having those attitudes would be great, I think.
So where do you draw the line between what you're calling the real world and the spiritual world in your mind?
Well, where I draw the line is I look on the spiritual world as something that crosses lives, right? So it's not just your own life, it's other people, and also it may be lives which are coming in the future too, right? So that's what I consider spiritual. And so if one can lift oneself to operate at that level, where you're not at all worried about your ego or your rewards in this world, but you are doing it because you're absolutely convinced this is for the good of all. And you're doing it for multiple people and for multiple lives, for generations. That's spiritual, I think.
So then how can you draw a line between that and what you're doing in terms of action when they're interrelated?
They're interrelated, but I think it's, for most people, it's going to be very hard to ignore their own ego, right? For most people. I'm definitely one of those that would be affected a little bit, at least, by my ego, I think. A little bit. Now I've become much older, so the ego is much less at this point.
Yeah, well, that's the spiritual practice, right? Is figuring out, or am I listening to, what am I doing and why am I doing it?
Yes.
Right? What am I doing and why am I doing it? If you can listen to the answer to that question, then that's the spiritual practice, right? Ultimately. And then if you're acting from that space, then you're doing what you're calling acting with the real world, right? So how can you have one without the other? Unless you're just a robot.
Well, I think you're focusing more on the doing, right? And I'm
saying that you have
on...
to have both working in conjunction. Otherwise, you are not listening to yourself. You're doing what you're told, like a robot.
Well, let's say if I'm pursuing goals that I consider important in this life and in this world that I'm in, and given the circumstances that I have in my life, right?
Yeah.
That's egoistic, I think. To me, that sounds egoistic. While if you do things completely irrespective of rewards in this world or success or failure, that sort of thing, that's without operating without an ego, and that's, I think that would be hard for me to do, and it's probably hard for most people, I would think.
I mean, you don't think that people who are very connected to who they are also taking into account the experiences that they have and like the resources that they have and all these things? I don't know what you mean.
What I mean is, what's driving your motivation? What's your motivation for doing anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very much tied to real world, this life. That's how I look at it. This life and this world. That's what I'm tied to.
Well, what my point is ultimately is trying to divide this life and this world from what you're calling spiritual world or whatever is a meaningless and kind of self inhibiting task, because they are literally connected and you can't actually achieve in one world without being connected to both.
Well, I definitely feel very connected to this world, this life, right? Yeah. Not as connected to multiple worlds, multiple lives.
Maybe on an intellectual level, but like, how do you know that there's not a part of you that's not?
Well,
that
I'll give you an example. It would be hard. Well, I don't know if someone like Sadhguru or someone like that comes by every day. Obviously, he's almost accidental, right? He just happens to have that particular personality and life where he's been able to do everything that he's done, but I don't know if there's any way that someone can try to emulate him. That's different. I wouldn't have a desire to emulate him.
No, why would you try to emulate him?
Or anybody.
Or anybody else. You don't have his karma. You have your own karma. Why would you try to emulate him?
No, he sort of gives the impression that he's he's not touched by, I mean, whether you like what he says, you don't like what he says, whether you do what he says, he doesn't give a damn, right? He's just going to go right on doing whatever he's doing. He's not even worried about himself, right? So he's operating at a very high level, I think.
Oh no, he's definitely worried about himself. What makes you think he's not worried about himself?
Well, I don't know. I don't know whether he's worried about himself.
You don't think he's worried about he definitely you don't think that spiritual people care about themselves?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you read about people like Vivekananda and people like that, right? They obviously
just because you care about other people doesn't mean you don't care about yourself.
You have to take care of yourself. Otherwise, you're just going to disappear.
How can you care about other people if you can't care about yourself?
You could say, how can you be effective about other people if you're not effective about yourself?
Yeah, it's like how can you help other people if you can't help yourself?
Yes. And that's my point. That's my point. If you be successful in the real world, then you can help a lot of people.
Malika, you want to say something?
I mean, I think that, it makes me think of the saying, it's like, put your own mask on first, right? The oxygen mask.
Yeah.
If you don't survive to help other people, then you're not going to be able to do anything. So you do have to, if you want to help other people. This is something that one of my mentors recently said in a leadership talk, Dr. Willett. She was talking about her experience leading during the pandemic and how she really burnt out because she wasn't taking care of herself, so she just reminded all of us to say, she said, put your own mask on first if you want to be able to keep helping other people. So sorry, I have to deal with Sonia once.
Shobha?
Mute, unmute.
शोभा तुझे कहना है तो बोल.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. I have few points, but it's similar whatever others are talking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Chalo.
Jiten, any final words?
My final word तो यही है कि भाई you start from yourself, charity starts from home.
Yes.
So same way, if you want to learn about people and all of that, first you got to take care of yourself, then you can do other things.
Yes.
So that's the supreme thing, that you have to take care of yourself, make sure that your health is fine, and you can exist the right way in this world,
Yeah.
And then you go and do other things, So that's important.
Yes.
And a lot of these things that Lord Krishna is talking about, this is all trying to purify you. So we are in a very different mode, And one thing that people don't realize is, if they were not there, will things happen the way they are going? Yes, they will still happen. You are only a means, you are not controlling anything. Control is somewhere else. So whatever you are doing is all, the nature is asking you to do all of that, So you got education the right way, and later on you will use it, just like Arjun. Arjun was trained for all of these things. So nobody else had that kind of a training. So that's why Krishna was emphasizing to him again and again that I trained you from the very beginning to fight. And therefore, when the task comes to fight, then you cannot say, no, I won't fight. That's the whole word order, that's the way it is going to flow. And again, another thing that Lord Krishna said is that things, I have already killed all these people. You are not going to kill them. You have to just take the credit for that, and this is meant for you. So they are already killed by the desires of God. So same thing here, this whole word flows like that, So there is a flow, it's a natural flow, it will occur. It doesn't matter what you are doing, Main thing is you have to, as an observer, accept it, whatever opportunities come your way, you have to do those, and thank God that you have been able to deliver whatever He has meant for you. So that's the gist for me.
That's good.
Sonia, you want to say something? No? Okay.
I just wanted to share one thing. I found out this guy. Let me see. Oops, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's this Vivek Bindra. He lectures on the Gita, I mean, among other things. He seems to be kind of getting very popular in India, anyway. But the only thing is he talks in Hindi.
Sun nahi raha.
Oh, you can't hear that?
No.
Sorry.
No.
Oh, I probably have to do something else here with the share screen. Okay, never mind. I just wanted to point out this Vivek Bindra, and if you guys want, you may want to listen to him. I think his presentation is pretty good, And only thing is he speaks in Hindi, so if you're not comfortable with that.
I think most people are comfortable.
Yeah, in our group, I think everybody.
Even Mallika and Shiv.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. Dolly knows.
Yes. You may want to.
I guess I'll end with a last maybe discussion topic about chapter 5, which is I guess a question for everyone is how do you know for yourself if it's best to act or to do nothing?
Interesting question.
Because sometimes it's best to act, and sometimes the best decision is to do nothing.
Yes. Yeah.
How do you know? I think that's largely what chapter 5 is coming to basically helping everyone to come to terms with, is how do you know if Krishna is saying act or if Krishna is saying do nothing?
But I think, I mean, do you want us to respond or just think about it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're both action ultimately. And when you realize that they're both action, you realize that either of those behaviors leads to consequences. So there's no way out. You by doing nothing, you are doing something. By doing something, you're doing something. So you have to choose what action to take, because inaction is action, right? So I think being able to think about the downstream consequences of what you would like to happen, or try to help happen, that will help you decide what action to take, because there's no out. There's never an out.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. Inaction is also an action.
Yeah.
I mean, based on your experience, you will take a certain action, and that's fine, because ultimately your action will be the same as given by the order. So it doesn't matter what goes on in your brain and all of that. It doesn't control anything. You will, however, you will still argue the same way. You do your homework, whatever you are doing, and then you do an action. There is a question most of the people ask, oh, look, the ant's life is in my hand. I can either kill it or let it survive. So I have total control. But you are going to do exactly the same thing as the order wants. Not that you can make a difference. If you're going to kill it, that's in the order. If you're not going to kill it, that's in the order. Based on your understanding, you take the action and move on. So that's what it is.
Like in the case of Arjuna, right, in the battle or the war, his kind of question about whether or not to continue fighting, it's the desire. He's choosing between actively fighting, right, or effectively deciding to lose, right, and by doing nothing. And so I think Krishna is probably pointing out that by doing nothing, you're setting sort of life down a certain path. This is not doing nothing. You are helping a certain outcome by taking inaction here, right? By selecting this behavior. So either if that's what you want, then don't act, right? But if you want a different outcome, then this is what you need to do. Even if it's painful to do that. So you either way, like he's saying, there is no out. You're acting either way. And one might be easier at the moment to do, but you're gonna pay for that later anyways, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but Arjun was not acting the right way. Krishna was his guru or Sarthi, so it was his dharma to point out to him the right thing. So the right thing at the time was to fight, and the questions that were bothering him, they were all spurious questions. That's what Krishna is trying to show him, that look, whatever you are worried about, you are killing, you are not actually killing. Okay, and your all relatives are there, so you're getting attached to them. Why are you getting attached? Do your duty. This is your duty. You are supposed to do this.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think that was good for today. And next time,
chapter 6.
Chapter 6.
Yep.
Last Sunday. Let me see. When is this? We will have the next one on the 28th.
28th of May.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Shiv. Thank you, Jitain
Thank you,
and
everyone.
Praveen.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Gita.
You didn't talk much, Lata, this time.
Sun Rayon.
Yeah.